Welcome to the Beyond Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode number 67.
Unspoken Rules Part 2. My name is Adam Childs, across the road, table, street from Kieren Lefebvre. He's the button masher.
The button masher, blue belt extraordinaire.
Beep, boop, boop.
Yeah.
What's going on, bro?
Mate, just enjoying my morning coffee and getting keen for our very first Part 2 episode.
Yeah,
We haven't done this before.
No, actually, it was not planned. We'll let you guys know. We got nothing to hide.
We don't plan anything.
We don't plan nothing. Yeah, I mean, it just sort of happened a bit organically in the sense that, you know, the episode 66, Unspoken Rules, we had a whole list of stuff we wanted to speak about, and we were like, man, we didn't get to it. And instead of going, we'll do another episode on it in a later date, which we've done with previous episodes where we've kind of had a topic that could have overflowed into a much longer episode.
We've never come back to any of them.
And this time we thought, man, why don't we just do them back to back and do a part 2 episode?
So obviously this is a part 2. So this requires listening to part 1.
Well, yeah. I mean, do it. I mean, it's good for the analytics. You should do it. But if not,
do it or don't do it. We don't care.
Yeah.
We're chill. Please support us.
Yeah.
All right.
So obviously, if you're listening to this episode and you're like, they didn't even mention this unspoken rule,
we probably covered
either
it.
we forgot or it's in the first episode.
Most likely it's in the first.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So
you'll just have to listen to find out.
You'll have to find out.
Yeah.
Follow for more. Follow for part 2. That's,
yeah. Like,
Anyway.
thumbs up, subscribe,
yeah.
ding the notification bell.
Yeah.
Leave a comment.
I'm going to clip that segment.
It really helps out the channel.
I want to clip that segment and use it as my subscribe fucking
You should, bro.
animation.
You should.
Your face, whatever.
And give it like that South Park Ike pace.
I can do that. So let's get into it. Unspoken Rules Part 2. What have you got for us, Ads?
So there's a few that I wanted to talk about. Some that are a bit more kind of banter related in the sense that I wouldn't classify them as unspoken rules, but they happen in some gyms. So just the title of the particular unspoken rule in itself, people who have been training long enough will be like, oh yeah, my gym doesn't do that, but you'll be aware of it. But before that, there was one other legitimate unspoken rule that we didn't get to last episode. That is, I would say it's probably the most well-known unspoken. It's a bit of a paradox, right? It's like the most well-known unspoken rule.
The most spoken unspoken rule?
No, it's the most well-known unspoken rule, but it's also the most unspoken rule. So it's like, how does it become the most well-known unspoken rule if nobody talks about it?
I'm intrigued.
Which is the whole never ask your instructor about your belt or when is my next belt or I don't want to blanket say belt progression because that's not a fair thing to ask, because definitely new people join gyms and they go, oh, how do the belts work? Like they have no idea, right? They
get one.
Yeah.
I reckon you get one ask early days.
Yeah.
Your first month.
I thought you were saying you get one belt. You get one and that's it.
Look after it. And then it slowly over time turns black.
Yeah. So, so that's the sort of unspoken rule that definitely exists. And I'm sure you probably understand what I'm saying now. It's definitely the most well-known unspoken rule, but it's the least spoken rule at the same time.
Yeah.
What do you, as someone who is closer to the newer jiu-jitsu practitioner end than the shock and awe on Kieran's face. But I've been doing it for so long. What are your thoughts on it? As someone who still has some belts to pass through, how did you first hear about this rule, or when was it exposed to you? Because you're definitely familiar with it. As soon as I said it, you were like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard about it. I probably saw it on some sort of forum or comment, because I got into the jiu-jitsu social media space really early, right? like my first month of
You were
training.
like, I was knee deep into the Reddit forums before I decided to start training.
Yeah, pretty much. So funnily enough, I don't think I've ever told you this, but you would have seen it. I made a YouTube video after my first session, and like, cause I was already doing YouTube before I started training jiu-jitsu, and I made a video like something like what to know before your first class from someone that just did theirs, or whatever it was, like things I learned, things I wish I knew.
Catchy.
You know, yeah, it was like things I wish I knew, like some sort of, I would change all of them. I'm actually going to redo that video and, make it a thing, but not to get off track. And then Jiu-Jitsu Times, like that magazine, like the online magazine, they picked it up and published it in an article.
What?
Yeah. So they picked up the video and they found it through Reddit because Jeremy Skinner posted it on Reddit.
Why are you so poor? No,
Tell me about it. They didn't even fucking pay me. No. So, and the only reason I figured out, because my analytics on that video just skyrocketed on external, and then YouTube's able to tell you exactly where external views come from, and it came up Jiu-Jitsu Times.
They took it as in they just copy pasted.
No, what they did is they wrote an
article
article about it and then shared the video in the article, and was like, oh, a lot of us forget what it's like, doing your first class. Check out Kieren.
I guess that's better than them just essentially plagiarizing your video.
Yeah, no, they published the video. They promoted the video, and they did that. I found out, because I traced back and I looked up on BJJ subreddit, and that's where Jeremy Skinner, who we've had on the podcast, spoken about him so many times, he promoted it without, like, he didn't tell me that he did it. He just promoted it like, oh, hey, check out my friend. He just started doing jiu-jitsu. He put a YouTube video out showing some love, and because Jeremy's pretty well known, he generated some interest in it. Jiu-Jitsu Times picked it up from there. They published it. They published heaps of my stuff before. Even like when the Danaher stuff.
This is obviously their online.
Yeah, their online stuff. Yeah, nothing in magazines. Let's keep your heads on. But when the Danaher Death Squad shit was going down, I
and that's when you made your first $2.43 from YouTube.
Exactly. It's now $5.43 in total over 12 months. But they picked that up as well. It's like, hey, if you want to know the latest, like whenever they released like the Danaher Death Squad updates, are like, for the latest, this video breaks it down. And it was my video. I'm like, a couple of websites did that, which is pretty cool.
Jiu-Jitsu Times, there's just one editor sitting there on YouTube, just like keeps refreshing your channel, being like, come on.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's easy journalism for them. So they weren't the only ones. There was another jiu-jitsu website. It was like Jiu-Jitsu Europe or something like that. They picked it up as well, a couple of my videos in the past. And it's funny. I see like the trickle down analytics from all these random websites. Really, it's cool. But
enough of your fame and fortune.
Enough of my fame and fortune.
So what are your thoughts on
I found out the belt thing through just like being in that space. But I knew it before that, and I think I knew it as like a common sense sort of thing. It's kind of like I don't even know if I did. Maybe I just heard it somewhere else or whatever, and assumed that I knew it beforehand. But it seems common sense, right? When you're a beginner.
But that's the funny thing, because a lot of the unspoken rules seem common sense, but we definitely have a very warped perception of common sense because we're in the space.
So it's common sense to someone that's been training for more than a minute, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that looking back on it, I think I'm a little bit too far removed from day one to know where I learned it, but I definitely learned it, and it was just reinforced. Like, you must never ask about your belt progression. And it seems like common sense now. Like, asking about your belt progression is the surefire way to add time onto your belt.
Yeah, that's the not the saying, but that's the sort of consequence that is known to go with it. That if you ask, like, when's my next belt, when am I grading, or something along those lines.
Why would you? That's the wrong question to be asking.
You
should be asking, and I know you've spoken about this, but I'm all fired up. You should be asking, hey, coach, how can I get better?
Yeah, so that kind of, segues into how I wanted to address this unspoken rule. That would be, well, firstly, like I briefly said, you can't fault someone who's brand new when they don't know anything about the sport and they just flat out ask you, oh, how do the belts work?
They get a hall pass.
Yeah. Of course, because they might, brand new people don't even know that, like, it'll be white and blue and oh, I saw this person with a yellow belt. Okay, it's a kid's belt. Like, they don't know, right? They got no idea. So, of course, they have every right to ask, and they're like, oh, how long does it take? Because maybe they did karate or something and they're in for a shock and awe to learn that it's not just a, well, I don't want to dump shit on karate, but some martial arts are pay to win, or it's like, oh, it doesn't train once a fortnight. It doesn't matter, but after 3 years, you'll be a black belt. So ignoring that, how do you ask? Well, there's a few kind of asterisks that I would put where it's kind of okay. And you know, well, what do I mean by is it okay? I'm kind of now shooting myself in the foot wondering if people ask me when's my belt, do I by default add more time? Because it's a very spiteful thing to do, right? Like, and it really is just
I think,
a spiteful
look,
thing. I mean,
subconsciously, you probably would.
I haven't had someone flat out ask me in that way yet.
All right,
like,
ads. I'm going to be the first, mate. Nah, I wouldn't. I
I've
wouldn't even do it.
I've already added plenty of time to your belt. Don't worry about it. The damage has been done. But I have had
Not
people ask me, and I think this is well within their rights, and it usually comes from white belts, ask along the lines of, oh, what do I need to do, you know, to get to the level where, you know, I could earn a blue belt? You know, how much, like, what's it going to take, bro? Do you need me to like give you a lift to the shops? Like, do you want me to like, you know, how much money, you know, like I've had people ask me in that regard, like, what am I missing? You know, what do I need to do from a improvement point of view? And I think that's a fair question, you know, because they might be a bit lost in their progression, or maybe they feel like they've been training a lot, but they had time off or whatever. And maybe the question will just be, oh man, you know, you're so close, you just need to put in a bit more time. Or it might be, oh man, I'd like to see you compete. Or, you know, oh man, we've really got to work on this. You haven't, you know, we've shown you this, but you keep forgetting this. So I don't think I think that's unfair to add more time to someone's belt if they're asking how can they get better, right?
Mm.
I mean, and I think that's fair. The fact that it's not even necessarily that it's connected to asking about belt progression. It's that we as jiu-jitsu instructors, or the sport of jiu-jitsu, has those belts in place as like sort of mini milestones, right? So that's obviously their only point of reference to say, what do I need to learn? What do I need to get better at to reach that rank? Right. So I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, I think it definitely can be a fair question. Absolutely.
I mean, it depends how it's
worded and
right?
like your relationship and how your instructor or your coach or whatever takes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How they're taking on that information.
And because I'm pretty open with my students to some degree about their belt progression.
100%. I know exactly what I need to do to get a purple belt from you.
Like, yeah,
exactly.
Well, we've done it like multiple podcasts.
We've done so many. Like I've sat here for hundreds and hundreds of hours listening to your belief system around jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so you don't need to ask. Yeah.
Like out of all of your students, I probably have one of the better ideas on how to fucking what you want to see, what you expect, and you know how you view jiu-jitsu philosophically, how you view it practically, how you want people to train, how often you want people to train, your view on competition. Man, I've got it all. I've got it all.
Not only do you sit here and listen to it, you hear it when you're uploading the audio.
Yeah, and I listen back once
it's
been fucking. I actually listen to all of our episodes.
Yeah,
because I love hearing myself talk. Give myself a little wink when I'm editing. I'll be like,
but you know, like I'll give you an example. When Joey, who we've had on the podcast, gets mentioned quite a lot, being my first black belt. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast, but when Joey came to train with me, I was a black belt, or quite a new black belt, and I still am. You know, I'm a first degree, meaning being a black belt for 3 years. And Joey was already a brown belt, and I had a conversation with Joey just about what some of his goals were and things like that. And of course, I already knew one of his goals would be to get a black belt, right? Of course, you know, he's a brown belt and he's wanting to continue training. But he said something like, oh, I want to get my black belt before I'm 40 or whatever it was, or before I'm 35. I can't remember what it was, he said. But, oh, you know, my goal would be to get it before this and that. And I remember saying to him that, yes, I can help him get there. But I kind of straight up said a few things. I was like, bro, firstly, I would want to see you compete at brown belt. I also explained to him the rules and regulations in terms of grading people to black belt. So I said, man, it's important for you to note that in terms of being an IBJJF certified, like I'm not allowed to give out a black belt until I'm a second degree. And at this time I wasn't even a first degree yet. So I was like, man, so that's another, whatever it was, 4 years away or 5 years away. So I'm not IBJJF certified. I said, so you've got a couple of options, right? You've got wait until I'm a second degree, knowing that I couldn't give you an IBJJF certified black belt and until I'm a second degree, right? You've got the option of training under someone who is a second degree certified with the IBJJF, or you have the option of receiving a black belt from me, knowing that I won't be able to sign the IBJJF document, right? So we had this conversation because I thought that was well within his rights to know that. Like, imagine if you, I don't know, spent time studying under someone, assuming that you're going to be qualified to then go off and do whatever activity.
Yeah, like studying medicine under someone.
Yeah.
And at the end, they're like, I'm not a doctor, bro.
Right. And long story short, I had a conversation with my coach, Fabio, as well. And the conclusion was, well, IBJJF is just an organization, right? So,
yeah, you spoke to Fabio about it.
Yeah, there's plenty of black belts who they've never done their document. There's quite a lot of documentation and bureaucratic shit you need to do to be certified with IBJJF. So there would be plenty of world-class black belts who the IBJJF would not recognize as black belts. But that's just that organization. These guys are fighting in, I don't know, I bet you there's black belts fighting in who's number one, like the flow grappling super fight event. For sure that probably have never done their IBJJF documentation.
100%.
So anyway, that's just a very long-winded way for me to say I'm quite open with my students about their progression and things like that. I've quite recently had a conversation with another student, a purple belt, who we do have a grading coming up. And I didn't go out of my way to say this to him, but we were having a conversation about some of his goals and his plans and things like that. And I was like, look, bro, I wouldn't typically sit here and tell you this, but because we're having this conversation, I said, I'm going to tell you this grading coming up is not going to be the day you get your brown belt, right? I need a little bit more and I need this. And it was also, I had made the decision that I felt like he needed to know that I needed more from him. Yeah. What I didn't need from him was for him to be really sad and depressed and feeling let down on the day of the grading. Yeah. That's unnecessary pain for him. So again, it's quite a long-winded way of saying that I'm very open with my students about it. I've never had someone say, when's my belt, right? But I don't think the conversation is 100% off the table. And that's kind of point number one, right? The other time that I would say it's definitely kind of cool and perfectly fine to have those conversations is for sure if you're a high-level competitor. That is not unheard of for students to say to their coach, like, I want to compete at Worlds. Like, let's say Worlds is in May and your coach has got a grading coming up in April. You've been a 4-stripe purple belt for 2 years, right? So there's maybe a good chance you're going to get your brown. I don't think it's unheard of to have that sort of conversation of like, oh, I want to compete at Worlds before I get my brown belt or something like that. Or, because then if you're wanting to go that route of a professional athlete, of course, needs to be some correlation to your results in competition and your belt progression. I'm not saying you have to win Worlds at blue belt before you can get a purple, but
you got to win something, bro.
There's got to be some correction.
Man, I've already ticked that box. Yeah. So I'm fucking sweet.
Yeah.
I'm fucking
so I don't
done.
think that's
purple belt's coming. I already won. Come on,
said
bro.
So.
Come on, bros. I won. Fuck, throw me in a purple belt. Actually, while we're talking about that, and we'll get on to another unspoken rule, I've already decided, can't change my mind. Toward the end of the year, I'm going to compete in pro division. So I'm going to compete in no-gi pro against brown and black belts.
Fucking do it, bro.
Yeah, bro. I don't know why I brought that up. Just doing it. Bro, be sick.
Fucking that. I've decided I'm giving you a purple belt.
Yeah, bro. He's pull one out. There you go, son. That'd be funny. You promote me on the podcast.
You don't know how long I've been carrying this on me, bro. I've been waiting.
Been waiting for you to say that thing. But yeah, what's another unspoken rule?
So, all right. So that's another sort of like serious one. I want to go into some ones that are slightly sort of unrealistic, but some gyms would enforce this or call you out if you don't. So they're a bit more vague, unspoken rules, but I just want to have a bit of a laugh at them. So the first one is always use appropriate titles, right? And for sure, more traditional gyms will do this. Like we kind of spoke about in the last episode, some of the rules in terms of greeting people when you go in and on the mats. And we had a bit of a chat about whether you bow going on and off the mats, right? If you want to hear that, that's in the other episode. But essentially we were saying like, yeah, there's for sure traditional gyms where you have to bow and you got to bow to the picture of the Grand Master and whatever. And kind of to stereotype these sort of gyms, they're the sort of gyms that you may have to only refer to your coach as like professor or master, right? And first of all, professor is not as strong as a word in the English language as we think it is. Like the word, like when we think in English, professor, you think someone who's got like a PhD or, you know, a doctorate or something like that. You know, they're a lecturer at a uni or something. But in Portuguese, professor is just the translation of the word teacher. Right. So like if you were, while I was living in Brazil, I taught people English just to make money. But I was in Portuguese, you would say I was a professor de inglés, like an English professor. I'm not an English professor, right? But
Mate,
so
not even close.
yeah, not even close, right?
Mate.
I don't even know my ABCs.
Yeah.
D's. D? Yes. Right? They changed the ABC song. We spoke about
Yes,
this.
we did. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Anyway.
You're still fuming.
We always just, it's like subtle jabs to previous episodes.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
Link in the description.
Oh, this is like a little reward for our long-term listeners.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely some gyms would be like professor, master. I think it's stupid. I like to have a much more sort of intimate relationship with my students. You would
They call me daddy.
yeah, Papa. Right. Most students call me ads, which is weird because it's always how I know that they're at a distance because none of my real friends call me ads, by the way. They all, but most of my students
What do
call
your real
me
friends
ads.
call you?
I'm not telling you. No. So
the reality of that slight just sunk in.
So no, it's quite funny because I don't know, maybe I think almost Joey and JT started it. So people who don't know the guys from Bulletproof that well, or you've never seen any of their content or in person or whatever.
You've seen one, you've seen both of them, really. They look the same.
That's the joke, right? People assume they're brothers. They have they're very different people, don't get me wrong, but they have very similar mannerisms to some degree. And
they look similar.
So it's quite funny, like JT, James, is the only guy in my adult life, pretty much all through my teens and adult life and all my time in Brazil and whatever. He was the only person who called me ads, right?
Right.
And the first time I ever met Joey, JT didn't introduce me as ads. Oh, this is Adam. This is Joey, blah, blah, blah. And within like 10 minutes, Joey was calling me ads, right? It's just like reinforced that they're very similar people. And then, so I don't know if them being around the gym kind of bred that everyone in the gym calls me ads.
I thought that's like your preferred nickname because that's
how
how like you were. I mean, you were introduced as Adam, and I called you Adam when you introduced me. But everyone was calling you ads. Like, oh, hey, ads, ask ads. Like your name is fucking ads. Yeah. Shut up, man. Yeah. What the fuck? What's your actual nickname? Then?
I'm telling you about. So most of my my friends outside of the gym, they call me AC, like my initials.
Really?
Yeah, so that's what I've been called for.
AC.
Like
I'm gonna start calling you AC.
Probably. So if you see Chris, right?
Yep. He calls you AC.
Yeah.
Really?
Chris will call me AC, right? Because Chris is
AC
a blue belt of mine. But
you ever
Chris
get AC/DC?
No, but my brother's name's David, so our initials together are AC/DC.
Oh my God, that is so good.
Yeah.
Are you the older brother?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm younger than him. I know, it's almost
almost
there.
I'm going to call you David now.
Yeah.
I'll call you Adam.
So
that's interesting.
So yeah, anyway, you'll notice Chris, because we used to live together and are friends, have been friends for years. He'll call me AC and
can I call you AC?
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, but other people
I'm
in the
a true
gym
friend. I want to put these two clips together. Only my true friends call me AC. Can I call you AC? Of course you can. I love you.
But not when anyone else is around.
Yeah, not on air.
So yeah, and my whole career in Brazil, I always called Fabio, right? Never called him instructor, professor, master, but there were also people right next to me. I'll be like, hey, Fabio. And other people would like bow to him and be like, oh, master or professor. So it's a bit of an unspoken rule, but I think it's only really enforced in quite traditional gyms, similar to bowing. I guess again, and similar to the bowing thing, I don't bow. I would have bowed less than a handful of times. But if I was visiting someone else's gym and they're lining up and like, oh yeah, bow to the master. I mean, I would bow, right? I mean,
you follow the lead,
if they told me to call the instructor professor, I would. I mean, their gym, right? It's their gym, their rules. But in my gym, you can call me Ads or Adam or AC, I guess.
You cannot use AC. You need to be given permission.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You need to receive permission.
Revoke your AC card.
Yeah. It's like a little laminated. How big does your ego need to be?
Yeah,
hey?
Oh, God.
That's funny. Yeah.
You got a laminator? You do it now?
Yeah, 100%. Well, you gave me a nickname at the gym that's sort
Special
of stuck.
K.
That's stuck. Yeah.
I like it.
Even my mate Zach calls me Special K
Does
from time
he?
to time. Yeah.
Because I mean, it's
whenever
like,
it's a jiu-jitsu, like he was filming me the other day at the comp in the finals when I was like took this guy's back and I was about to choke him and he was like just commentating on the camera like, oh, Special K's got you now, like you're fucked now, time to go to sleep. And he was just like fucking commenting. It's super annoying to get rid of in the post. But it's funny, like these kids next to him are laughing and
it's really good because you could, I mean, whatever mood you're in, you could change. Like if someone ever said, oh, how'd you get that nickname? Right? Like we have,
I don't even know.
We have a guy at the gym called Jonas who has a nickname called Soy, as in soy sauce. But it came from, he had a previous, one of those classic stories of, oh, his nickname used to be this and then soy rhymes with that. So you could always change the story. So I started calling you Special K. I don't know why. I think because Special K is also known as being slang for ketamine, right? I don't know if you know that, but
right. No, yeah.
And so you could always be like, because I put people to sleep. It's like ketamine, Special K. But you could also be like, for any international listeners, you wouldn't know, we have a cereal in Australia called Special K.
It's worldwide.
Yeah, right. It's just made by Kellogg's. So you'd be like, because I eat heaps of fucking Special K, bro.
Yeah, bro. I'm munching on that cereal.
You could also just be like, oh, yes. They're special. Right? It's so layered, bro.
Yeah.
But I like that stuck.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, Special K. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, Az calls me at the most. Aaron. Anyway.
Aaron is my favorite because Aaron is kind of like my dad in the sense that he says like the most random sayings that you've never heard of and make no sense. Like you'll be telling a story and then Az will say something like, like a dog on a ferry with a princess hat. Like, what? And he's like, haven't you heard that before? And you're like, no. What does that mean?
Because he's a bogan, mate.
My dad says the same. Like my dad would just say now I'm used to the expressions my dad says, but says something that you're just like, what?
Yeah.
I love Az. He's so good. All right. So some other unspoken rules, right? And some are, like I'll glance over this one, line up in order. Like, it doesn't need to be spoken. It's very clear and obvious when people line up.
That's not even unspoken. That is spoken because when someone joins the gym, you're like,
they'll be told,
yeah. Like depending on how disorientated they are after class, you're not like, you have to be the end because you're the white belt. You're like, oh yeah, just line up at the end. Just join the end of the line.
Funny. I actually like, for me, we've spoken previously about stripes on belts and that a white belt with 1 stripe and a white belt with 4 stripes, you're in the same division, right? Like it's actually the color of the belt that matters. The stripes aren't official rankings.
Yeah, 100%.
But I like seeing like particularly the white belts will like squabble for, no, I'm in front of you because I got 2 stripes and you got 1. And I'm like, don't fucking matter, bro. But I just like let it happen.
Dude, I've even had like people that there's 2 of us and we're both 0 stripes, and then like you try and rank in order who got promoted first.
Yeah, so
I've seen that subconsciously.
I've had that happen as well, or I've even done it where I've just sort of, a way of to be like a bit respectful, like, oh man, you've been a blue belt for longer than me, so
and I've had people
go ahead.
I've had people that got promoted before me that were like purposely, oh no, I got to go behind you because you're better or whatever. Like you tap me or some shit. I'm like, go fucking settle down, mate. Just line up.
Settle down, bro. Just stay in your place. Just piece of shit.
Just line up and take the choke, you bitch.
So I mean that one's pretty obvious. Never wearing your shoes on the mat. We spoke about that.
We mentioned that.
So another one that I'm not even going to say this is unspoken, because in gyms that enforce it, it is very clearly spoken, which is like only wearing their gis or their uniforms, right? There's it's most of the bigger teams that enforce it.
We did mention this last episode.
Oh, did we?
Yeah,
right,
we spoke about Atos, and I was like, nah, that's fucked. And you're like, if you went to Atos, you would fucking wear their
we
gi.
did, sorry.
You'd rent their gi. I'm like, yeah.
You would, right?
Yeah,
like
100%.
You would suck it up to train.
If it was the Atos. I don't care if it's like Atos in Canberra or some shit. I'm like, not fucking buying your gi.
I remember when, so Fabio was telling me he went to, Fabio's got a really good relationship with Hodger Gracie. They have a few joint black belts that they've given out together to some students.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's sick. And he was if you don't know who Hodger Gracie is, right? One of the greatest fighters of all time, fought for Gracie Barra. You know, previously Alliance and Gracie Barra were the two top teams that were always like battling each other. Currently, if you're just looking at, the worlds and stuff like that, now it's like Alliance and Atos. Although, what's his name?
Checkmat.
Was it Checkmat who won the last Worlds?
I believe so.
Was it? I believe so.
Yeah, they're always up there.
So, yeah. Anyway, Fabio, obviously coming from the earlier days, definitely, even though he's not someone who is like this team against that team and, oh, you're from that team, you can't train. Like he's had Braulio with Steamer and heaps of guys from other teams do seminars at his gym and whatever. But anyway, he was in England and he was visiting Hodger and Hodger's gym. And so he was training there. And so they have a uniform policy. And I remember Fabio was like, Hodger, bro, he's like, I will not wear a Gracie Barra
100%.
And he was like, I'll wear a Hodger Gracie gi, but I'm not going to wear a Gracie Barra gi. Yeah. And so Fabio wore Hodger's, a Hodger Gracie gi. And
I don't think I would wear a Gracie.
But like I remember when Braulio came and did a seminar, like Fabio didn't make him wear an Alliance gi. Like, he wore a Gracie Barra gi.
Did Alliance and Sao Paulo have a uniform policy?
Yeah.
So was it you had to wear an Alliance gi and it had to be either
white,
blue, or black?
Yeah. It wasn't the case when I started there. That transition happened while I was a blue or a purple belt there. Yeah. But
you have a uniform policy on your wall that states that it has to be a white, blue, or black gi. Yeah, but it's not enforced, obviously.
Well, who
amongst
has a gi?
Your students it is.
Who has a gi that is not that color?
Amongst your students it is. But if someone from a different gym
someone was
visited and they had a pink gi or something, you wouldn't really care. You wouldn't even say anything.
I'd be like, that's atrocious.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care. I just mean like, because for me, they're the colors you're allowed to compete in. Like you can't, unless it's some random competition, you can't go compete in a camo gi. They won't let you. Like the colors of the uniforms you can wear are white, blue, and black, right? So, that's the colors. I follow that rule. Yeah, I think the rule states you must maintain a clean and rip-free gi, white, blue, and black. Right? I think that's pretty. If your gi has holes in it, get a new one. But yeah,
I was just thinking one of my gis has a fuckload of holes in it.
Yeah, and why's it got all those holes in it, Kieren?
So put it in the dryer, bro.
Put it in the dryer like a scrub.
Yeah.
So that unspoken rule is definitely spoken at gyms that enforce uniform policies. Don't visit another gym is another one.
We spoke about that,
which is so outdated. But again, people will enforce that. Some gyms will enforce that.
It's 2022. Wake up.
Yeah, wake up, bro. This is one that people. I actually hate when people say this. Don't use your weight or don't use your strength when you roll.
Not this again. Fuck.
Look how angry Kieren is.
Yeah, this is one of the
Kieran's
first
so
things
furious because he's just a fat, strong guy. he's like, fuck.
Man, if you haven't seen me, I'm like 8% body fat, so you can fucking check me.
Just had to put that out there.
Yeah, bro. Yeah,
correct. Look at this camera. Look at that camera.
Cut, bro. Shredded.
I'm so hungry. Yeah, I mean, that's. I get where that comes from, and we've spoken about it before. That it's you want to learn technique, but man, you also got to use your attributes.
Yeah, that's dumb. Don't be a spaz. I think it should just like that. I think that statement works for beginners to try and like reduce their amount of spaz time because a lot of beginners me included, have a fair amount of spaz.
Imagine a beginner just being like, oh, bro, I had spaz for about 45 seconds, but after that, I'm cooked.
My spaz time needs to increase.
I need to up my cardio so I can spaz for longer. All right, guys, lie down. We're going to do spaz sprints. 10-second intervals. Ready? Go. Rest. Go.
Jimmy, too controlled.
Spaz more. I know what we're doing tonight. Spaz class.
Excellent.
Anyway, so this one is definitely relevant. And I think it's quite ironically way more relevant now with lockdowns, hopefully never happening again, but having happened over the past few years, which is always keep your membership active. What a dumb rule, right? But it makes me think about the stance that some gyms took during lockdown, right? Which I don't know how other countries or gyms or parts of the world took care of it. But our gym took an approach that students were always given the option to cancel their membership. Of course, the gym's closed, the service isn't being provided. But instead, we took a stance where it was, okay, we've changed our product, right? We no longer sell physical jiu-jitsu classes. We sell online classes, which, of course, we know it's not the same thing, but we were thrown into this lockdown world that no one really knew what to do. And, and prices were adjusted accordingly. And so people had multiple options, whether they wanted to pay their regular membership, pay a discounted membership for the online content, pay nothing.
Just pay what you could. Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. It was a pay what you could. But there were some other gyms that, pretty much forced their students to continue to pay. One in particular was, I'm not going to mention any names, but someone said that lockdown happened and they went to the instructor and was like, man, like I'm going to have to cancel, like, I've lost my job and whatever their personal financial situation was. And the guy was like, oh, look, man, like you got to keep paying. This gym's my livelihood and blah, 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 blah. He was like, man, I can't, I got no money. And he was like, okay, I'll cancel it for you. But then, once the lockdown is all said and done and you want to come back to training, the total cost of the weeks you didn't pay will be your rejoining fee. So if his membership was $50 a week and lockdown lasted 10 weeks, you've then got to pay a $500 joining fee if you want to come back and train. I know other gyms that just ghosted, just zero communication with students.
Yeah, I know those guys too.
But continued to charge.
A friend of mine was training at one of those gyms.
Which I found that hard that was even possible, because when the first lockdown happened, in Australia, we have direct debit companies that it's not the banks that charge the accounts. It's direct debit companies. They're like a middleman. They actually froze all the direct debits and issued like an email saying that you can't charge customers for a service that you're not providing.
It's illegal.
Yeah. So I had to actually provide them and prove to them that I was providing online content. Right, that I was providing a service in exchange for those finances before they would,
otherwise
debit the money.
It's donations.
Yeah, or fraud.
Yeah,
right?
or stealing.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So, Anyway, that's
wow. To actually comprehend that a business owner to one of their, not even a business owner, because the business relationship between the coach and the student is more than that. I suppose from your perspective, it would be, you would need to have a switch in your brain where you turn off coach and turn on business. You would have to have that, right, at some point.
Yeah.
But there's still that coach side there. So to say to one of your students, someone that's been training with you, that trusts you, that you have a rapport with, to say, no, fuck you, I don't care that you've lost your job, you're not reducing my income. That is insane to me.
Yeah.
That is insane.
I mean, I get how businesses and companies get to that position, if it's something like Anytime Fitness or Fitness First or whatever, or Gold's Gym. They're a massive multi-million-dollar business. They have, it's just some receptionist who doesn't want to be there. She's just doing what she's told, and there's lawyers and everything. And, it is what it is. But I mean, for me, it's not even about the fact that I have rapport with my students. It's like it's probably my weakest link in terms of being a gym owner is I'm very easy to be like, yeah, bro, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
sometimes I wish I was a little bit more removed and did have some receptionists there being just
To be
like
the bad cop.
yeah, but I'm also very, like sympathetic to people's positions. Yeah, when lockdown happened, like I said, we were providing this online content, but people who had no money and lost their jobs and couldn't pay anything, they were still getting access to all that on everything we were doing online. The people who canceled their memberships altogether were still getting it. Right. In other words, the people who were paying it was essentially, you could think of it as donations, but they were also given the option not to pay. Like everyone was given the same options.
Yeah.
And I never, and even then, the people who lost their jobs, I said, and when the gym opens back up, you can come back and you can come back to training for free until you're employed again. If I'm in a position to, of course, the business needs to make money because it's got bills, but if I'm in a position to help, right, I don't see why I wouldn't. Anyway.
It's because you're a good bloke.
Yeah. So another bit of an unspoken rule that is, I think the more I think about these unspoken rules, so many of them are outdated, but then, more traditional gyms will enforce them, which is to learn your lineage, right? And some gyms will actually have, there's actually, I don't think I would never enforce the rule, but I think it's cool to have the information available to you. A plaque that I would like to have in our gym that I don't, that was in Fabio's gym, was just like a line of photos that it just essentially said like, learn your history. And it had, Carlos Gracie. It had Maeda first, the guy from Japan who came over to Brazil, and then Gracie's, and then Hulls Gracie, and then Jacare, then Fabio. And then there'd be a blank like photo frame and it would say you, as in to be like, that's where you'll be if you follow this lineage.
That's awesome.
But there's traditional gyms that at the end of class, like you'll line up and you'll have to bow to the photo of the Grand Master or something. So you can imagine those gyms being a bit more, like, I don't know, imagine doing a belt test. And if I said, all right, now Kieren, so tell me the lineage, your jiu-jitsu lineage, you'd be like, good button pressing. You scrambling for that, right? It would be a bit like that. So I would never enforce that rule, but I don't know. It's not the worst thing to learn a few people's names.
Yeah.
There's worse unspoken rules.
There's a really awesome video that you share with new people that join the gym to learn about Alliance as a team.
Yeah, it's a bit old now. But not old as in outdated. It was just filmed years ago. But it's a cool little video. I
remember watching that. Yeah.
Like little 5-minute video just about Alliance's history and, how important it is to continue to, progress and blah, 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 and stuff like that. It's got Fabio and Jacare and Gigi talking a little bit. Yeah, it's a cool little video.
Yeah. Everywhere in like defense bases around Australia, there's always like a lineage. Not lineage like a rank, a hierarchy really, but it's similar. It changes the hierarchy of photos. So it'll be like who the chief of defense is, who the chief of your service is, so the chief of Navy, then the captain of or like the 1 star of whoever is in charge of your group, wherever you're posted, and then your CO, and then it fucking goes down. So every man, the dog's up there. Their photos, just so you're constantly exposed to what these people look like, because it's a very common problem in the defense. Air quote problem that like service people, like enlisted people, don't know who the hell is in charge. Even officers,
you all look the same,
mate. Everyone looks the same, but
same
no one
haircut,
cares. Like
same clothes.
No one not many people can rattle off their entire chain of command, if you will.
Do you ever have to?
Oh yeah, for recruiting you do, like for an officer selection board, which is different from getting recruited as an enlisted person. You need to they'll ask you like, who's the chief of defense? Who's the chief of who's the vice chief of defense? What are their responsibilities? Who's the chief of Navy? Who's the fleet commander? Who's Complot? Commodore of the flotilla, or previously known as Commodore of Warfare, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, they ask you all these positions, and I did my officer selection board when there was a transition period, so they just changed literally the week of the board. So they expected you to know who was there and who was replacing them and where they were going next, and like all sorts of shit. Man. It was crazy. Yeah. And I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. I memorized the names, but I didn't know anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite funny.
All right. Next one, another, semi-unspoken rule, which is like, no politics on the mat, or similar to that one where people say, like, if you go into a family dinner or something, you don't, what is it? You don't talk about politics, and you don't talk about religion.
Yeah.
You don't talk about money or some of those things.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I disagree with that to some extent. No, to mostly I disagree with it. Of course, you should leave all your conversations off the mats while you're in the middle of class. But, if you're not able to converse with your teammates, man, you can make some of the best friends, lifelong friends in the gym.
Yeah.
And so if you're not able to have some of those, conversations, or if you don't have any of those conversations, how else am I going to find out you're like a white supremacist? And
I was like, I know you're a Nazi.
And I need to kick you out of the gym, like.
Yeah, or topical, you're Russian.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Poor Russians, bro. The people are getting like.
Yeah, I love them.
Like.
Not what they're. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to go there, but let's not go there.
No, but I mean.
Politics on the Jiu-Jitsu podcast.
Yeah, but you definitely got a feel for a lot of the,
I do. I really, really do.
Just the good Russian people who are getting kicked out of every single sport and whatever. Like, I think they got kicked out of
Formula One.
Yeah, I don't know if he did, but there is a Russian driver in the Formula One.
Oh, no, I meant like F1 got kicked out of Russia or whatever.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Russia. The race, they're not hosting the Russian Grand Prix.
There's so many of those.
I think like they've been kicked out of like all the international like skiing competitions and things like that. And definitely sucks for like the credible Russian athlete who's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Anyway.
Vodka.
Well, they've removed vodka from shelves as well that are associated with Russia.
What? Have they?
Yeah, in a lot of countries. I think Canada did it. They stripped all their shelves of vodka. Yeah, the sanctions are crazy. Anyway.
That's just a way to sell more maple syrup.
Fucking Canucks. Love you guys.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean.
That reminds me that just of the speaking about politics on the mats of another sort of, I don't know if it's an unspoken rule, but the whole don't talk during a roll. It kind of is.
Yeah, fuck. I'm all on board with that rule.
So I have done it before, and with like regular training partners, you can take like little pauses just to have like a quick 2-second conversation. But then once you're on, it's on. Like you're not going to be, unless it's a joke or whatever, or like, everything can be taken within the context, right? But I've rolled with people, this one guy in particular, story time. He was a visitor from a different gym. I was rolling with him, like, you have this like policy that if they're not a white belt, like they're an established, they're a colored belt and up, and they're from another gym, put your best foot forward, represent the gym. And I was rolling with this guy, and he just kept talking to me, like kept making comments about everything, like, like, oh, fucking hell, and just, oh, rah, just like making like really weird comments. He was like talking constantly during the roll, and like it was really, really off-putting. It was made me so uncomfortable because
But talking to you or talking to himself?
Talking to me, but like, and himself. Like it was a bit of both. And I mean, I was obviously, by the tone of this story, I was winning the role. I was putting him in bad positions, and he didn't like it. So he kept like making comments, and I'm like, what the, just shut up, bro. Just shut up and tap. Like, what the fuck? It was so weird. But then again, I'll roll with Aaron, the purple belt, and like, after I try something or whatever, and fuck, that didn't work, I might say it out loud, and then he'll be like, yeah, we'll talk about it after or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's the, if someone is talking to themselves because, I don't know, it's one of their quirks or whatever, I mean, there's not much you can do about that. If they're rolling properly, but I don't know, they just mutter to themselves or whatever, I mean, get over it. But yeah, it's no talking during the roll as in, man, like that timed period, it's a time period to roll. Like that's not the time where you stop and ask your partner like, oh, why didn't that work? It's like, yeah, man, like after we're in the middle of a roll, like I don't go for a jog with you and halfway through, be like, oh man, we're going to see how fast we can do 5Ks. And then halfway through be like, how do you tie your shoelaces? Show me. Right? Like, I mean, no man, we're on a run. Yeah. Like at that point in time, it's rolling. Any questions or things you're unsure about, ask at the end, right? When it's in the interval, if you've got time, or at the end of class or whatever, that is the time that you roll. If you're doing a 5-minute round and every minute you're stopping to be like, show me this, blah, 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 like you actually end up doing maybe a minute of rolling. So the rest of the time you were talking.
Yeah, fucking get on with it. Like,
Yeah, that rule.
I know
put
you've
that
had a
shit in
good role
concrete.
with a good training partner when after it, you're like, oh, when you were in this position, was I close? I'm like, no, I think you need to do this or whatever. Like, you know, I have that with a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, that's
particularly
fine.
like, you know, particularly like Toby. After it, we, you know, make mental notes and then discuss the role afterwards and, you know, try and improve that way. And yeah.
Yeah,
but
I'm all
talking
on
during
board
it,
with that rule.
man, don't talk to me. And Joey does it as well. Like he'll be like a hectic knee on belly, like a knee run. And he'll be like, just breathe, bro. Just breathe. Just look at me.
Yeah, I mean,
that's different though.
He does it to me as well. Like I'll be knee on belly on him, and he'll be like, bro, all day, bro,
all day, got nothing, bro.
And I'll be like, okay,
yeah,
all day it is, Joey. So, man, the last unspoken rule I want to talk about is us.
Us.
You must us.
You must us.
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 On that note, thanks so much for listening to.
Well, what is us? You must.
How do you spell us?
OS. Oh, how many S's? I think 2. OSS.
So it's OSS. I've seen it written OOS.
No.
And I've seen it written.
Never.
I've seen it written OSU.
No.
Yeah. Don't know how. It's us. OSS.
OSS.
Us.
And it means us.
Yeah, and Shaka's.
And Shaka's. I love
like
it.
a jiu-jitsu
I love
thing.
it when love it when new people ask, what does us mean? And you're
us
like,
is the way.
And you're like, yeah, and you're like, oh shit.
Us is the truth.
You know, it's like, well, yeah, you just know when you know when it's the right time to say us, it's us.
Yeah.
I love it when you're training a lot.
Yeah,
you're training a lot. And you, I don't know, you go to the supermarket and someone's like, have a nice day. And you're like, us. And you walk off and you're like, fuck.
Oh, shit. Us, bro. Us, good training.
You must us.
Good training, bro.
Us. Us.
And I think like one small, like 30-second unspoken rule is that whenever you go to high five knuckles, someone needs to knuckles. you can't both high five.
Batter cake, baker's man.
So to context of why we find this so funny, Ads and I for the last few weeks have been talking about this. It's come up quite a lot.
Well, you can't tell them now you're going to ruin the video.
We haven't told about it.
There'll be a video.
There's no videos.
No videos.
We don't have video capability.
What's a clicky clack cam? Oh, I don't know how that works.
Clickety clack, it's fucked. That was like that's my favorite quote from this podcast, just talking shit.
From our podcast or a podcast?
No, our podcast. Ages ago, I was like, clickety clack, it's fucked. And I can't remember. And I got so many messages, like people sending me that quote. Anyway. On that note, thank you so much for making it through this episode of the Beyond Jiu-Jitsu podcast, Unspoken Rules, part number 2. Maybe there'll be a part number 3.
Maybe.
Probably not.
But the next episode won't be because it's Johnny Yaps we're having on the podcast.
Yes, Johnny Yap will be featured.
Johnny Yap, his podcast is Johnny Yaps.
Yes,
so.
But to learn more, listen to the next episode, which will be number 68.
Yep.
But if you want to support the show, you know the drill. You can do so on our Instagram at @BeyondJujitsu_podcast. We also have a Patreon. We have awesome content. We post regularly on Patreon. We post behind the scenes. We post exclusive episodes, Ask Me Anything.
Saucy nudes
from Ads, feet pics from me, the works. So
what pics from you?
Feet pics.
Feet pics.
Come on, man. You don't act like you aren't
you
behind
do
the
have
camera.
you do have some good feet. I'm like, oh, damn, oh, damn, they're flat.
Fucking flat ass. Mate, my feet are flat as a tack. I'm telling you, I have zero arch. It's actually a problem. Anyway.
It's like when carpenters are building something, they don't get a level, they get a Kieren foot.
Yep, that bitch is flat. I'll have to actually post a fucking pic of my feet now because people can see they are very flat. Anyway, thanks so much for suffering through this with us. And until next time.
I'm Adam, and this is Flat Feet Kieren.